Hello and welcome to Systems of Equations, Part 3. Hopefully by now you've watched Part 1 and Part 2 and you've done your whole study guide. If not, go back and do that. This is going to cover page 3 of the study guide. So let's get started. Alright, so for number 4, and again, I want to make sure you guys get credit for the study guide. So on this page, can you just draw a diamond on page 3? That'll show me that you watched this video. And so what you're going to do is consider the following system of equations. We want to write an equivalent system of equations and justify why they are equivalent. Well, for a system to be equivalent, it should have same solution, and each line should be the same line, essentially just having all the same points, like we talked about with our mix and match. They would be So a system that would be dependent on the system that we currently have. Now, there's an infinite number of ways we can answer this part. I think the easiest way is just to choose one number, like let's say we're gonna multiply it by everything in the equation. So let's multiply everything in this equation by 2. That's a little hua, and hua. So we would get the equation 4x plus 2y equals 8. So what I'm saying here is that this equation is the same thing as this equation. They're just multiplied by 2. They are equivalent. If I divide everything by 2, I would get back here. These two equations are exactly the same. They have the same slope, same y-intercept. If you were to graph this, this would be a line and this would be a line like exactly on top of it because it's the exact same equation. So then if I want now I just chose 2, I can choose any number. Let's say I chose 5 for the next one. It doesn't matter. I'm going to hua. So 5 times negative 2x would be negative 10x. And 5 times y would be 5y. 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. Now, this system is equivalent to this system because both of these lines are they're equivalent. They're the exact same lines, and the solutions would be exactly the same. So if you were justifying why they're the same, it would be exactly what I just said. So make sure you fill that out. And again, make sure you're using the after column here. That's number 4. Alright, for number 5, what we're going to do is we want to write two inequalities for the system. So I think I'm going to start with this inequality here, the one with the blue. And I'm going to write an inequality for that. And the format I'm going to write it in is, what did I do? I'm going to write it in y equals mx plus b format. Because again, what I'm looking for is the slope and the y-intercept of this blue inequality. Now, of course, this is an equal to sign, but with a shading, that's not going to be equal to. So let's start. So we have y, I'm not going to need an equals. Let me fix that. I'm going to use an inequality, not an equation. This is not going to be an equation. We'll find the slope. X is going to be just a plug-in, and b we can find. So b is our y-intercept. If I'm looking for the y-intercept of this line, this inequality, it's going to be right there at 1. So my y-intercept is 1. Now, next thing I'm looking for is the slope. So if I follow this point, and the next point I see is down here, I'm going to rise and run. Looks like I'm going to go down 1 over 1, which would make this slope equal negative 1. Alright, next I need to figure out, is this a dotted or a solid? To me, this is a dotted line, which means it's going to use either a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to, so I might as well just put the equal to sign in. And let's see, it's in slope-intercept form. Our shading is above, and when we're trying to show all the y's that are above, we use a greater than sign. Greater than sign, of course, can be made with your right hand, not your left hand. So this is the inequality for the blue shaded area. Now on to the other one. I'm going to use the same format, a y, an x, and my y-intercept starts right here at 0. So it's going to be plus 0. Now, I'm realizing this as I looking at this question. I probably should have done a better job editing. The test won't look that bad, but if you were to follow this line, okay, so it looks like here we're going up, and it kind of gets cut off, but this is 1. I would say this probably goes up to about here is where it crosses the line. So I'm looking for a slope of 1, 2. Again, on the test, I'll make sure it's much clearer for you guys to read. It doesn't get cut off. So we have y, 2x plus 0. And now we need to do our inequality symbol. And since we have a dotted line here, this is going to be either greater than or less than. The shading is below, so we know it is a less than. Alright, so finally, now we have our two inequalities for this system. These two match up with that graph. Alright, we have one more page to go. We're going to do that in part 4, so please come back to part 4, and I will see you there.